Inspired the Firefighters Health Act?
Well, we had the firefighters come usually the beginning of the spring session in February and March time, and the unions come to the legislature and they meet with all their local MLAs to advocate for things that they need. And during that time last February, our local union from Langley Township met with me and the two other Langley MLAs, and they talked about the advocacy that the BC PFFA is doing in regards to health for firefighters. And I was blown away by the fact that there is literally no health care plan for firefighters. There's no consistency anywhere in the province about what is required for early screenings of cancers, general blood tests. Like, there's no routines that firefighters need to do. Certain municipalities and they might do their own thing, but there's no consistent overall arching plan. And so when as a private, I'm because I'm not in government, I'm not an NDP MLA, so I'm not government. I'm called a private member. And as a private member, you get an opportunity to present a private member's bill. And that is done on lottery. So at the beginning of the session, everybody's name is put into a hat, and you are allowed, you get drawn. And I was drawn number 9. And this is before we'd even stepped foot in the legislature after we got elected. I was very nervous. I had no idea even what a bill looked like, let alone what are you going to do? And so I considered trading away my opportunity, because you can swap and trade with other people, because I had no clue. I was thinking of something within the construction industry, but then decided against that. Private members' bills are very constrained with certain procedures. They can't be what you call a money bill, where it forces the government to spend money. So you're pretty limited on what you can do as a private member's bill. So as I considered it, I can't remember where I was, but I knew that my opportunity was coming up in May. And I think it was about March where I had an aha moment, that I'm like, oh, my local union came to me with things that they need. And so I met with my local representative here, and I talked to him about what would you think of me presenting this as a private member's bill, and it just went from there.
What is it like to be an MLA?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I love it, I do, but I also find that it's 2 different jobs in one. So the Victoria part of the job is very different than when I'm in Langley. And so there's a bit of, it's interesting. It's also a job that has no job description. It has no manual on what being an MLA is. And so it is a job that you learn as you go along. You also get to craft it the way that you want to be. And so I have chosen to be a very present MLA within Langley, trying to do my best within my constituency and within Langley proper in general. If you look at my social media, I'm not really on X. I have a little bit on X, but X is where kind of like the political pundits sit and the media sit. But that's not the reality of where Langley constituents sit. And so I'm maybe on the provincial stage, I'm not your loudest MLA, but in Langley, I'm really trying to stay focused as being a Langley-based MLA. And so I love it. I love when we're in session, we come home Thursday nights, and as soon as I come home, I'm like, this is what my job is I always have to remember what happens in Victoria doesn't necessarily always translate here. So I have to make my time in Langley very intentional, making sure that when I'm here, that I'm everything that I can't do while I'm in Victoria, like meeting constituents. I can on Zoom, but this type of interaction is different, having a boost on a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, and having those coffee meetings, going and supporting different organizations. That's really where my heart is, and that's the part of the job that I love the most.
What was it like to be a city councillor?
I miss city politics. I do. City politics or municipal politics is very different from provincial in the sense that there's that sense of being a little bit more boots on the ground. The decisions you make at the municipal council table are things that affect your life every day. It's your street patterns, traffic, urban planning, parks, recreation. It's the things that people see and is most tangible. And so your voice at a council table has more impact than me as a team of 39 in opposition has on the provincial stage. So I feel like, in my heart, I know cognitively my impact and my voice is just as important on the provincial stage, but you feel it more in the local arena. So municipal council tends to be a little bit heightened in terms of resident response. The decisions you make are very publicized. The things that you vote on in Victoria, nobody generally is aware of. And so, I'd say the social media commentary is a little bit more intense on the local side than it is on the provincial side. So it's it's an adjustment. People generally know who your mayor and council is, but they forget that who your MLA is. And so I'm trying to make sure that I stay present. Even on municipal topics or municipal things. Right now we have some open houses for bus rapid transit, which is generally something that the Township of Langley is coordinating with TransLink, but I still went because those are voices that I need to be where the people are, and if they're going to be there talking about TransLink, which gets provincial funding, that's a piece that I can do that crossover work with mayor and council as well.
What major infrastructure projects would you support?
In Langley or the province?
Kind of overall.
Well, you're going to hear me start getting really loud for Langley on, obviously, Langley Memorial Hospital. That's something that's been on the radar since 2017. Was re-announced and re-promised again in 2024. And here we are, 2026. The budget comes out in February, so it'll be interesting to see if Langley gets in the books of the provincial government. Also schools. I know we've had a couple announcements of school additions, and then obviously the new Smith Middle and High School, but we're still woefully at a deficit of seats for kids in Langley. I actually personally spent a couple weekends ago, going to every single school site and counting the portables and seeing how many portables Langley actually has, and trying to get that information. And so infrastructure projects for us, for Langley focus, is hospitals and schools.
If you were the minister for infrastructure and construction, how would you get things done and on time?
Good question. That is something that I am spending the last year doing, and I'll still continue doing, is learning from the industry what is not working. It's hard for me to know why, from a bureaucratic level, things are not working very well on project delivery. I know from personal experience, coming from the construction background, what I would do, but it's hard to know what policies are in place. Everything from contract style that they're engaged with their contractors, everything from that to policy and regulations. A lot of bureaucracy is what delays projects, and so I'm getting into the crux of what particular things are causing delays. If it's decision making, if it's too many hands in the arena, if it's permitting. There's a lot of permitting problems. But again, we can talk about permitting, but it's not just building type permits. When I was sitting with a minister in committee debate on Bill 15 in the spring, I learned that, quite often construction projects, they have to get a permit on environmental concerns or environmental issues, saving a particular frog in an area, and so there has to do assessments there, is that sometimes projects are waiting for permits from non-construction related ministries. And one of those ministries had 7,200 applications sitting in the pipeline waiting to be approved for things to progress. And so when you've got queues with over 7,000 applications waiting for permit approval, we've got a problem. And so we have to start seeing where there's overlap in policy, overlap in government agencies. We talk about fast-tracking projects, but what does that actually mean? Bill 15 was the infrastructure project bill that much of the spring session focused on last year. And I was heavily involved in as the critic of that portfolio. And so it was sold to the public that it's a bill to fast-track projects, but all it was a bill that allowed the ministry, when a project hit a roadblock, to take that project, pluck it out, and move it to the front of the line or solve the problem. But it doesn't inherently get to the root of why that problem was there. And so that's where I'll be spending when I am infrastructure minister, I will be focusing on truly less about a bureaucracy as a ministry and more as an actual project delivery entity.
What's the good and bad parts of being an MLA?
Good. I have some amazing, great stories. Things that just remind you why you do this job. Helping constituents with real, tangible problems. A lot of people don't understand that as an MLA, my office is here to help assist people through navigate provincial systems and provincial arms of the government, everything from ICBC to WorkSafe to different things. And sometimes, because we have different phone numbers, we have different contacts. So when somebody hits a roadblock, we can help, navigate and get successful conclusions to cases. And this past summer, I walked into my office and there was a gentleman standing at the front desk talking to my staff, and he had a bouquet of flowers and a box of chocolates and a handmade card, and he gave me the biggest bear hug, and he says, "Your staff helped me solve this problem." And I was just blown away. I had somebody somebody came into my office when I wasn't here last week, and Jacqueline texted me and she's like, "This gentleman just came in just to say thank you." And so that's the best part of being the job, is knowing that sometimes because people come to you at their worst. They're not coming to you for the most part to say thank you. They're coming here because they're hurting. Their families are hurting. Their family needs help. And the best part of the job is being able to try and provide that help, or at least let them feel heard. I can't always solve problems. There's some things that you just can't solve, but at least take the time to sit with them and make them feel heard. The worst parts of the job, probably, the time away from family. It's not as bad for me because my kids are adults, but I have teammates that have young children at home, and they're gone, Sunday through Thursday. Those are missing, Christmas concerts and birthdays and, family anniversaries and things like that. That part of the job is tough. I won't lie, the social media parts can be tough. I find, now that I'm an MLA, it's a little bit different. And not being able to, I get really frustrated by the narrative sometimes of the media as well. Quite often when we're in session, I'll turn on the news while I'm getting ready in the morning, and they'll have a kind of a breakdown of what happened the day before in the chamber. And the information's all there, but it's either reported out of sequence, and it's like I'm watching it going, that's not really actually what happened. It's like this person said this, and then this is how we reacted, but how it's presented is sometimes the interpretation from the media can be slightly askewed and not, the flavor is there, but sometimes the flavor's not there, so that piece can be frustrating as well.
What would the first steps for someone who would like to be an MLA, what would they take?
What would you do, or what? Yeah, in general? I think entry into politics. has a lot to do with just getting involved, working on a campaign, working, volunteering with your local office, also, just following things on social media, especially because people always forget when, especially being an MLA, you can have the approach that, we're provincial, so you have a provincial lens, but really understanding it is your local constituents that vote for you, so make sure you know and understand what your local issues are. And don't just come at it from a hammered approach of, just like, if you want to get into politics, you have to understand that it is a bit of an art or a skill set, in the sense that you're going to be presented with problems, but you also have to understand how you might address them. As politicians, especially in opposition, we're not always going to be like, here's the solution. We have been doing it. Like affordability, get rid of the carbon tax. Oh, look, we got rid of the carbon tax. When it comes to, crime and drugs, it's like decriminalization is not working. And all of a sudden now we're not renewing decriminalization. So we do say what we would do. But, when it comes to local issues, you have to understand that it's not just highlighting the problems, but it's understanding that sometimes solutions are still hard. Problems with schools in Langley, it really does come down to a bigger capital investment for infrastructure projects, but where does the money come from for that? Well, that comes from a booming economy. So how do we get a booming economy? Well, you have to support the forestry sector and the mining sector. So it's all interrelated. So I think from somebody entering politics, it's just getting involved, it's volunteering, riding associations, like working, if you are the same political stripe. So like I have an association where I have volunteers that work on making sure that the Conservatives and Misty van Popta are, they're working with me to make sure that I get reelected, helping me, get campaign election ready. But even if you're not an MLA, so the NDP party also has a riding association. So if that's your political affiliation, get involved with them. So it's just getting involved and also understanding it's a long game. It's hard for young people to get involved. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, I think, because then you get attacked for your youth and not having world experience and things like that. But sometimes there's benefits. I think for the average, our party is pretty young. We have quite a few MLAs from late 30s into their 50s, and then we have some that are older than that as well. So we have a good mix in our party. But yeah, it's just making sure that you're getting involved one way or the other.
Who would you support for the leadership role of the Conservatives?
Funny. So we're just starting to get those rules out now. So the rules only just came out last week. We're just being advised right now on whether we can endorse candidates or not. But I'm going to reserve personal judgment until I know who's in the playing field. For me, I can tell you kind of my criteria that I'm considering. For me, it has to be somebody, most likely, I'm not saying that this is everything, but I think having, at the end of the day, it is an actual job. It's not just being a politician. You have to understand how politics works. So to get somebody who's never been an MLA before to be a leader, I think is going to be a huge challenge, because you're learning not only what it is to be an MLA, but also having to lead the province at the same time. So I would probably lean towards somebody who's had political exposure. They don't necessarily have to have been an MLA, but at least political exposure in the past. But again, not necessarily. But that's something that I think is important to me. Leading the province is half of the job, but leading a team of very diverse people is the other half of the job. And we're deemed the big blue tent. So we've got people from all walks of life and perspectives in our team. So it could be we're united in key messaging on certain topics, but the nuances of little things we can be, quite diverse on. So this has to be somebody who understands how to, just typical human resources management of people and personalities. So I think that'll be important. I think those are my kind of big ones. Yeah, I think those are probably it.
What advice would you give people who one day aim to be an elected official?
Yeah, I mean, much like, getting involved to be an MLA, I think it's just being eyes wide open, learning as much as you can, and also being very intentional with not being closed-minded. And I mean that in the sense that I pull out this example every once in a while. I ran in 2011 for a city council. In 2011, I remember a conversation that I had with a constituent once, and it makes me cringe today because my philosophy in 2011 was that I never wanted to see a high-rise here. I wouldn't support high-rises. Langley is a small, country town, and we need to keep it this way. Well, as you mature, as you grow, as you learn, as you understand that if I want to preserve what makes Langley great, which is our rural nature and things like that, then we have to build up. People are coming regardless, so now you have to plan appropriately for it. So if I think of if I didn't have that open mind to learning and growing and understanding, I wouldn't be here today. So it's understanding that it's okay to learn from what you used to think and being able to identify it. I think, if you're going to, nothing is secret. So if you put something out in the sphere, it's going to come back eventually. So you either own it or you don't. And I think when you own your past, I'm not going to call them mistakes, but things that you used to believe and you no longer believe, it's okay to own it. It's okay to change. But when you run from who you used to be, it's used as a weapon against you. And so the fact that I, ironically, and this is before I got into construction and development, and into even understanding how, I was in my 30s then when I thought that, and I, was a stay-at-home mom, and it's like, of course I just want Langley to be the small country town that I grew up in. But, the reality is this area of the province is growing exponentially, and people have to go somewhere. So I would rather be a part of the change and understanding how to do it right than just say no and close my borders and nobody's coming. So, and it's owning that. It's owning changing your mind and being okay with that.
That's it.
All right.